Hello and welcome to another episode of the Corner 3 here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. We are not in the Beaver County Auto Studios, as you can see. It's not our new green screen, don't worry. We are live at the Petersen. We are here at the Petersen Events Center. Just seemed to be the better place for you and I to meet up today, Alan. But it's actually fitting because the first thing we're going to discuss is the Pitt men's basketball team, who obviously the other day on Tuesday had a huge win over Florida State, the number 11 team in the country. A big upset win, now 2-2 in conference play. And Alan, first things first, I mean, that was really obviously a terrific win for this team, for this program, starting off under Jeff Cale. I mean, what are your biggest takeaways first off from that win against Florida State the other night?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a kind of a statement win for the program. You know, they were able to show that the win against Louisville wasn't some kind of fluke, that they're a team that can compete night in and night out in the ACC. I mean, we've seen this crazy ACC season where everybody's beaten everybody already, and they've only played 4 games. And Pitt seems to be one of those teams that any given night can beat anybody in the conference. They could also, as we saw in the North Carolina game, lose by 25 points. I honestly think that those are going to continue. You're still going to see some of those, but I think they've shown that they belong with the rest of the league, and that they're in that conversation every night in the ACC. You don't know who's going to beat who, and Pitt can beat anybody on any given night. And I think that's a big step for this team because people didn't have that feeling about them coming into this year. People thought they were one of the dregs of the league, and I don't think you could say that about Pitt right now. I think they're just a team in the middle of the pack. I put on Twitter, jokingly, my ACC basketball power rankings were Virginia at the top, Boston College in the middle, and between was, I don't know.
We really don't know because nothing is really shaken out at this point, but you're absolutely right. That this team is one that has shown that they can be competitive, obviously more than competitive. They can win games, and now it's starting this conversation about, is this a tournament team? You know, we thought this is somewhere this team could get to eventually under Jeff Cale years down the line, but the way they performed so far, getting that big, a marquee win over Florida State the other night, beating Louisville as well, and a pretty solid schedule. The only bad loss that they had out of conference was to Niagara, obviously, which honestly at this point looks even worse. But it's starting to raise these questions now if this team is, in fact, a tournament caliber team, and obviously there's a lot of basketball to be played, but you're seeing them starting to accumulate those wins and prove that, hey, any night when they go out on the floor, whether it's at the Petersen Events Center or it's on the road, they have a chance to win. I think the biggest thing really that I took away from that Florida State game was I was waiting for a moment for them to really pull away in that game. It obviously didn't happen to the end, and it wasn't that they really were dominant offensively. I mean, they were getting to the rim.
Yeah, they didn't have a great game.
They did not have a really good offensive game at all, but except for Trey McGowan, who ended up with 30 points once again.
Even McGowan's 18 free throws in those 30 points.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not like they were, I think that's sustainable. It's not like they were sitting here chucking up threes.
No.
And, they didn't shot 31%, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great offensive performance.
What we're seeing from this team is that they're winning. I hate to say this, but they're winning ugly.
Yeah.
They're playing great.
Winning with defense.
They're playing
Their
great.
Defense is outstanding.
Exactly. And that's really been what has been the biggest factor in these 2 big wins over the past 2 weeks has been defensively. I mean, Florida State went like 1 for 18 stretch in that second half, and that's really what allowed Pitt to pull away. They weren't doing anything really special offensively themselves, but they just completely locked down Florida State, unable to get anything go offensively, and Pitt was able to come away with a double-digit victory because they are a great defensive team. And we're seeing this team, as we've talked about many times here on the Corner 3, that they're playing with energy, they're playing with a passion that we haven't seen from this Pitt program, or especially this group of players, in years. So really a lot of positive things coming the past 2 weeks from Pitt, and I don't think it's out of their own possibility they could end up in the tournament. If they end up going 8-8 in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it will happen, but it's not crazy to think that it will happen either. I don't think they're a favorite. I mean, I think you look at a lot of specific things like that loss against Niagara is a really bad loss.
Absolutely.
Their non-conference schedule was not very challenging, and one of the games that looked like it was going to be one of their marquee non-conference games in West Virginia, which they ended up losing by double digits, and now that looks like not a great loss. I mean, West Virginia started with 5 straight losses in Big 12 play.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the last team to play with Sags Canate. You have to take that into some consideration, but I mean, you can point at those things, and yet still at the end of the day, if Pitt's a 21-win team in the ACC, they're going. So
Exactly.
I don't know. You can pick apart what they've done so far, but honestly, I think it doesn't matter because Pitt can win enough games. I mean, you look at the schedule; it's not impossible. The games are not. There are enough winnable games
Absolutely.
that Pitt can make the ACC tournament. They win the ACC tournament, and the other part of that is it's not absurd to think that Pitt could go and win 2 or 3 games at the ACC tournament
exactly,
either,
yes.
right? Because they're a young team, they're going to have young legs. They're going to get deeper as the season goes on. I think they're getting City and Deer back. It's a team that could go out and play well that 1 week in Charlotte and earn their bid there. So they have multiple ways of getting there, and they've shown the ability that they can win the games they need to. Will they? I don't know. We're going to see. But it's not crazy to think it could happen.
Yeah, you see them matching up with pretty much any opponent in the ACC, and it looks like a game that's winnable. I mean, maybe outside of Duke, but they obviously haven't played Duke yet. So
Duke just lost to Syracuse.
but they did.
Yeah, I mean.
So I think that's a really good point, though, too, is that going to the ACC tournament, that's another opportunity where you can get maybe 2 additional wins that can boost that resume. And if they keep performing the way they are, if they end up at 21, 22 wins or so,
I think they're in. I think 22 wins in the ACC and you're in, and I don't think anything else about your schedule matters. I think that gets you there.
Yeah, so I think they definitely. We looked going into the year that this may be a team that would win 4.
I thought 4.
Yeah, I think we both predicted 4 on an episode of the Corner 3 actually to start the season. But I think this is really a team now where we're saying, well, they could go get 8 wins in the conference. They could get 7 wins. They could have success against a lot of teams.
There's at least 8 more winnable games. I don't know that they're going to get 8 more wins, but there's at least 8 more winnable games, and that's really all you can look at this time of year when you're talking about whether a team could be a tournament team or not. The other thing is, I think, as long as they have a 500 record, I think they're in the NIT. I mean, and it's kind of crazy to think that they won't at this point, just because of everything they've shown us to this point. Now, anything can happen. You lose Trey McGowan's for a couple games, some kind of injury.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. But I think they have to feel very good about their chances of playing postseason basketball right now.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll for sure be fun to watch as this team and as the season unfolds going forward. But want to switch to an NBA topic here. I haven't talked NBA really in a few weeks, actually.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since we did a lot.
But something that actually happened last night, the Celtics got a big-time W over the Toronto Raptors at home. Celtics are a team that had lost 3 straight games, one to the lowly Magic, and there was a lot of drama on this team. Players only
Lost
meetings.
the Hawks too, I think.
They did.
Yeah, and
they did.
it was a weird stretch.
Yeah, so get a big win last night at home against the Raptors, and after the game, Kyrie Irving had a fantastic performance. He had double-digit points in that fourth quarter, really shut the door on the Raptors, and I think defined himself and showed himself to be the closer on this team once again. He talked about with the media after the game that actually after that Orlando loss, he had called LeBron and called him up and said, listen, I'm sorry for how things went down in Cleveland and how I may have acted, and I understand what you're going through. And this is something that we talked about earlier on the Corner 3 as well, that that was something that Kyrie was starting to go through when the Celtics were struggling a little bit. Was he's that alpha dog, he's that leader now, the only guy on the team that had won a championship prior, and trying to get all of those different pieces like the Jason Tatums, Jaylen Browns, some of those other role players, get that all to mesh and work. And I'm not saying one win is going to do that for the Celtics, but I think he's finally starting to realize and come to terms with, yeah, maybe I was that guy that was making it difficult for a veteran player focused on winning. And hey, and also apparently when he called LeBron, apparently LeBron was at dinner with Kevin Love, which is poetic.
How's that happen? Yeah.
Incredible, but
that's fantastic.
But I think that shows a lot from a growth standpoint from where Kyrie has grown from when he forced his way out of Cleveland to where he is now, is that he called up LeBron and said, hey, I was that kid. I understand what you were going through, and maybe I need some advice now to figure this thing out in Boston.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, to me, it's all about him becoming a guy that is an on-floor leader as much as it is anything. I mean, listen, the stuff in the locker room or whatever happens after the game, that stuff matters, but it doesn't matter as much as what happens between the lines, when the game is being played. And that's a team where they have so much, we talked about, they have so much freedom on offense.
Yeah.
But there needs to be someone that's in the locker room that is going to step up to somebody and say, that was a bad shot. or
Exactly.
you had one more pass. And it's got to be
Yeah.
him because he's the best player on the team.
Exactly.
And so he has the most gravitas to be the one that's saying that.
And you have plenty of leaders on that team. You have Al Horford. You have, Marcus Smart, Marcus Morris. But those are all also a lot of volatile personalities, excluding Horford. So
there's a lot of like streaky, weirdly bad shooters, like not consistent.
Well, Marcus Smart,
right?
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys that like left to their own devices will chuck up a bunch of shots and like have a bunch of bad games. Yeah. Somebody in the first quarter has got to maybe it's not your night, like
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing for the Celtics is they have to know when to pick their spots. They have to understand when, all right, tonight we play through Kyrie. Maybe there's a night where we play through Tatum. And what happened the other night against the Orlando Magic was Gordon Hayward on the final play of the game ended up giving it to Jason Tatum. He said after the game that's a shot in a play that they practice every day in practice that is always an option on that last possession play, but Jason Tatum just didn't make the shot. And I understand that he's also a great player. He's a shot creator, but in those situations, I think you just need to kind of give it to your closer, who is Kyrie Irving, and you always need to try and get it in his hands. Similar situation, and kind of a segue to our next and final topic was last night, the Houston Rockets were in a crazy overtime game that they ended up losing like 145 to 143 to the Brooklyn Nets at home. On that final play of the game, they ended up getting the ball to, I don't even know who it was in the corner, but jacked up a three, and James Harden was on the other side of the floor, not even involved in the final shot in that overtime period. You need to get the ball to your closers in those situations, to your best player, because that's going to give you the best chance to win. Role players are going to hit a big shot every once in a while, but you have the best chance if you give it to your best guy.
And most of your best plays are going to be designed for your best player. Like if you're a coach and you're saying, like, at the beginning of the season, okay, what kind of plays are we going to install? What are we put
exactly.
like a horns flare? Or what are where are we going to try to attack defenses of when we need one basket? You've got a dozen plays as a coach that you're going to want to rely on. You're gonna if you have Kevin Durant, you're gonna have plays that involve a post player, and if you have if you're a guard-oriented team, then you're probably going to be looking at find a way to take a corner three, and like
it's good.
It's good. Like so, that the Rockets plays are all for Harden, right? They have to be.
But to that point, I think that it's easier for the Rockets, and they didn't happen to make the right play then. But when you have a team like the Celtics or the Warriors, you have all these options of guys that can be your big shot guy. It does seem to complicate things a little more. But to the point of the Rockets, there's something that's been going on, a trend that we've kind of ignored for some reason over the last few weeks, and that's been James Harden, a guy that, when we talked about our early MVP predictions, a guy that wasn't even the conversation for us here. But over the last month or so, he has played himself into the MVP conversation. 40 points, 50 points. Every night it seems like.
20 straight games of 40 points, right?
Well, that's the stat I was going to bring up to you. 20
okay.
straight games of 40 points. The record is completely unreachable, but the next guy is 22 straight games averaging 40, Rick Barry. Then it's 23, Kobe Bryant, in that incredible stretch that he had in the early 2000s, which I believe included that 81-point game against the Raptors. But guess who the guy is? Guess what the leader on that list of most consecutive games averaging 40 points is?
Well, the leader's got to be Wilt.
It is Wilt. Guess how many games he averaged 40 points consecutively? You're not going to get it right.
How many games did they play in a season back then? Like 60?
It doesn't matter.
All right, I'll guess like 125.
515 straight games averaging 40 points for Wilt Chamberlain. When they put that stat up last night, I almost spit out my dinner. That is incredible. And obviously Harden's never going to reach that. He might think he can. He's got that kind of confidence right now.
Is he going to play 515 more games?
I don't think there's any chance he does. But that was such an incredible stat last night that I had to bring it up here on the show. But in all seriousness, James Harden is on an incredible tear right now. He looks to be...
That's 7 more seasons.
Some quick math by you there. It's impressive. Yeah, you're still baffled by it. But he has been on an incredible tear recently. And honestly, he has played himself into, from that 1-6 start they went on, to kind of not being in the conversation, to going on this tear. They're the 5th seed in the West right now, to being the front runner. And I think unless Giannis and Kawhi start picking up their play more than they already were, I think he is running away with MVP if he keeps this play up right now.
if he keeps his play up right now, he's running away with MVP because this is insane. And like,
wild.
not only is he playing so well, but they're winning, and that's not a great team top to bottom. And so
they have guys hurt all across the board.
It would be easy for him to be putting up a bunch of numbers while they're losing.
Yeah.
Like that to me, that was very easy to grasp in my mind. It's like, oh, the Rockets are getting run, but Harden's got 50. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
exactly,
I can see that. But he's willing that team to victory essentially all by himself.
They need him to
on
do
a
that
night-in, night-out basis.
Yeah.
And to me, when you're talking about an MVP, yeah, the stats, they count a lot. But the combination of those two things is what makes what he's done so impressive. It's one thing to score. It's one thing to score at an insane level, but it's another thing to do it while you're the only guy that, like, you just basically, like, when was the last time anyone ran like a box and one in the NBA? Like, that's, I don't know.
I don't know.
That's like, but that's what you need to do to play the Rockets right now, because he is the only threat on that team, possession in and possession out, to score, and he does it all game long against any defense you could throw at him.
And they've been missing Chris Paul, Eric Gordon. Now Clint Capella is going to miss some time as well with a thumb injury, I believe it is. So you're absolutely right. He has been willing this team, and this play has not been detrimental. It has been completely necessary, and all the credit to him, because I don't know what their record would be without James Harden. But he has been
terrible.
He has been playing off the charts, and that's an example of who is the most valuable to their team. Clearly,
I
it
think
is
like
James Harden.
The MVP debate is always like, is it the best player? Is it the guy that's most valuable to his team? But he's both.
Yeah.
He's both. He's the best player in the league right now, and he is by far the most valuable to a successful team.
Exactly.
Not just to his team, to a team that's winning, team that's in playoff position, team that, well, honestly, like, I can't wait to see in the postseason, because, like, they're going to be a team nobody really wants to play. Like,
not at all.
You don't want to. That's a bad draw. Like, they get in the second round and they're going to be playing a top seed. Like, if you're looking at chalk at this point, I mean, obviously pretty far away, but, like, I mean, them versus the Raptors, or I'm sorry, the Warriors, or like, that could be a second round series that people would be glued to.
Well, what is incredible right now is that they're the 5th seed. That they're not even, like, hanging out at 8 or not. They were out of the playoffs early on in the year, he has willed them.
I mean, if he keeps playing like this, they are going to be the 1 seed. Obviously, I think he's going to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
But
my only big concern with the Rockets is that he'll run out of gas, and that's something we've seen in the last few playoff seasons. The last few years is that James Harden's going hard all season. He won the MVP last year. He was nearly close to an MVP the 2 years prior. And once he gets to the playoffs, that second round or to the conference finals, completely runs out of gas. Completely, there's no legs underneath him. And that's something that I worry about if I'm the Rockets. That's something that I would worry about if I was Mike D'Antoni, is that, as much as we need him to do this every night, this isn't sustainable. And I think they're getting Eric Gordon back soon, within the next week. Capella's obviously going to be out. I'm not sure what the status on Chris Paul is. I don't think anyone really knows. But they're going to need to get him some help and make a deal here soon to get him some kind of relief, because although it's great to average 40 points a game, obviously you're not going to do it for 515 games, as we know, and he's going to run out of gas sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and I don't know what you do to alleviate that, because he's so important to what they're trying to do. It's not like they can, they can't give him a night off, and, like, how do you...
Why don't they bring back Melo?
How do you change everything you do in order to try to protect a guy like that? I just don't know how you do it. I mean,
their offense is entirely give him the ball and have him decide what he wants to do.
They honestly need to, like, come up with a stretch where, like, there's, like, they don't have that many days, and, like, say he pulled his hammy and, like, set him down for a week.
They're going to have to, because right now this isn't sustainable. And if they actually want to, they think they have a team that can go to the Western Conference Finals again. This is a team that
if they get healthy, they do.
They do, but there's no one else on the team. So they're really in a tough situation right now, where they have to try and slow him down and get him some rest, while also remaining this pace and pushing towards the postseason, because honestly, Alan, it's only a few months away.
We're getting close.
Hard to believe. But that's going to do it for us here today on the Corner 3. We thank you for tuning in, as always. Also, remember to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, Cale_Berger.
Saunders _PGH, and thanks to Beaver County Auto, our sponsors for this show and everything else we do at Pittsburgh Sports Live. We're not in the Beaver County Auto Studios today, but check them out if you're in the market for a new or used car on Beaver County, and especially on Facebook. Beaver County Auto, great people, and we thank them for everything they do for us.
Absolutely. And with that, that'll be another edition of the Corner 3. We'll be back with you next week.